campaign to end ritual infanticide launches in Abuja, promoting digital equality on the continent. And a polygamy app draws fire in Indonesia. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. A 20-year grassroots campaign to end the cultural practice of rural ritual infanticide among indigenous communities around the Nigerian capital of Abuja is yielding success. Now, the Basakomo people have a historic practice of killing babies that are perceived to be evil, including twins and albinos. But efforts by a local missionary and the government have helped to reduce the number of killings. Chika Odua reports.
These babies were almost killed. They were all branded as evil by their communities. Twins, like Henrik and Henrika, are believed to be bad spirits.
Multiple births are not acceptable to them. And when they deliver such children, they are poisoned with their local herbs. The child is abandoned in a room, not to be touched by anybody. He's already tagged an evil child. Nobody wants to nurse that baby, no food, no water. And they believe that leaving a child who lost his mother, that is going to spread the evil that they are used to kill the mother among the villagers, so they don't want them to leave.
Stephen Ajayi runs this rescue center in the outskirts of Abuja. It's part of his work as a Christian missionary. This place has become a shelter for so-called evil children. Albinos, twins, triplets, and even babies whose upper teeth appeared before the lower set of teeth are all at risk. Ajayi opened the Vine Heritage Home in 2004 and has been taking care of the children, all 119 of them. He makes sure the older ones get to school every morning. For generations, ethnic communities indigenous to the Nigerian Capital Territory have practiced ritual infanticide.
Twins were born in this compound many years ago. The twin babies were killed, and afterwards, the family set up this altar. The family believes that the spirits of the twin babies live here. Twice a year, the family offers sacrifices of chickens and goats to the spirits. They believe that this will prevent the spirits of the twin babies from coming back to haunt the community.
Alkali Magaji is the spiritual leader of this village called Kaida.
Our children believe that these children come from the evil one and no one wants it. We have a god we call Otachi, and we offer the children to that god. We suspect those children to be witches or wizards. That's why we eliminate them.
The government began investigating infanticide in 2013 and kicked off a campaign to eradicate the practice. Dr. Matthew Ashikani said the investigation revealed that babies born with abnormalities were also at risk.
If a kid is born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, which are defects in the the lips, all right, or the palate, all right, or those kids that come with the malformation that will lead to the head being so big, all right, we call it hydrocephalus medically.
But he says the campaign is having an effect. Infanticide is on the decline. Aisha Ayuba gave birth to twins this year. She decided to give them away to the rescue center where they could have a chance at life. Ajayi works with local chiefs to enlighten communities. This chief says they are working towards doing away with the harmful traditions of their forefathers.
We are happy seeing twins here alive, and there is no trouble.
Kutara Village is one of the first communities that agreed to stop practicing infanticide. But in other communities, the practice has gone further underground. Twin babies born in this village just a few months ago have disappeared, according to local residents.
Communities use various methods to kill babies that are branded evil. They could be suffocated, smashed to pieces, or even left to die. Or they could be given a poisonous mixture which contains plants and herbs like tobacco leaves, which are grown all along this riverbank.
Back at the rescue center, the children go on with their lives.
If they are not here, I don't think any of them will be alive.
These children don't know if they will ever see their parents again or even visit their native communities, but they do know that they are alive. Chika Odua for VOA News in the Nigerian Capital Territory.
Well, a Somali immigrant made his first appearance in a Canadian court on Tuesday after being accused of running down and stabbing a Canadian policeman and hitting 4 others with a truck. Abdullahi Hassan Sharif's appearance in an Edmonton courtroom came 3 days after the alleged attack. He faces a number of criminal charges, including 5 counts of attempted murder for allegedly attacking the policeman with his car outside a football stadium, then stabbing the officer multiple times. Sharif is also accused of later hitting 4 people with a moving van as he tried to avoid arrest. The motive for the attack is unclear, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called it an act of terrorism. Sharif fled to Canada seeking refugee status after failing to meet with U.S. immigration authorities about his deportation in 2012. Now, tensions are high across Kenya ahead of a presidential rerun vote on October the 26th. Opposition leader and presidential candidate Raila Odinga remains adamant there will be no rerun election unless the minimum demands made by his coalition are met. He also wants Parliament to abandon efforts to change the election rules. The ruling Jubilee coalition says it's ready to go to the polls and supports changes to election laws. Opposition supporters have been staging protests in the capital Nairobi and other cities, calling for the sacking of officials they blame for August's botched presidential election. Supporters from both sides have traded insults and accusations, raising fears tensions could boil over into ethnic violence. Now, what will be the implication of a boycott of Kenya's rerun election? For more insight, Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga joins me live via Skype from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Good evening, Honorable Raila Odinga.
Good evening.
Yes. Now, first, let's just explore this. What would be your options if, in fact, the IBC does not meet your demands?
Well, we say that if the IBC refuses to meet its demands, then there will be really no point for having elections, because it will basically be doing the same thing the same way and expecting different results.
Now, what will be the implication of you boycotting the election? I mean, does the law allow them to continue with the arrangements of holding an election even if you boycott?
No, I mean, the law says that there must be 2 candidates running. That was the ruling made by the Supreme Court in 2013. So what we say is that there will be no elections if the IBC refuses to address the illegalities and irregularities which were highlighted by the Supreme Court in their ruling.
Now, Honorable Odinga, you've been talking to the IBC officials in the last few days. Have they told you why they are not able to meet those demands?
Well, they are talking basically about time. We're saying that time can never be a constraint, like the issue of printing of ballot papers. There are so many companies that are capable of printing ballot papers. They seem to be tied to just one company in Dubai, which printed fake ballot papers. And we say that we wanted that company known as Grai to be removed, changed. The other one is a company called Sapromorpho of France, which is the ICT company, which was contracted to provide the ICT network in the country. And that also brought a lot of challenges, not being capable of transmitting results to the polling stations for tallying. And when they were asked to open their servers for verification by the court, they contemptuously refused to do so. We think that that company is in collusion with our competitors to basically help in the rigging of the elections.
Now, Mr. Odinga, in terms of the calls you've made to people to protest regularly, are you concerned that actually this might be used against you, where you're cast as a person who's willing to plunge the country into chaos if you don't get what you want?
You see, Makori, our constitution guarantees peaceful demonstrations, picketing, striking. Is all actually guaranteed by our constitution. All that we've said is that we want our people to protest peacefully, carrying twigs and white handkerchiefs as a sign of peace. So we are not in any way trying to drive this country into chaos or into violence. We are actually acting very legally, very professionally, and peacefully. It is the government, on the other hand, which is sending its police officers, general police forces, to throw tear gas and shoot live bullets at innocent people who are just protesting. So it is not us who are going to lead this country into chaos. It is the government, through the blatant use of the security forces, that is going to do so.
Honorable Odinga, yourself and those in the opposing camp, those in the ruling coalition, have actually worked together many times. You have all belonged to one party at one time or another. Have you reached out to each other, tried to talk so that you can bring the country together instead of causing it's a situation that makes people get concerned?
We have basically offered an olive branch. We told our colleagues that they need to see sense and to dialogue so that a level playing field could be established. They are very adamant because, you see, they are the beneficiaries of the rigging. So what we want to be rectified is what helped them to rig themselves into victory. And we believe ourselves that we are the ones who won and our victory was stolen. Therefore, we are the injured party. Yet we are ready to sit down and dialogue and find a way forward. We think that this country is bigger. This country can live beyond this crisis, and that we don't necessarily have to cause such much pain to our people. So we can never be accused of being the people who are driving this country into crisis.
Very quickly, your opponents also said that perhaps you're just scared of losing the election. That's why you're pushing for these changes.
We know that we won the elections last time. Our opponents know that they cannot win free and fair elections. And that's why, in the middle of the game, they are trying to change the rules. They have now come up with new election rules after the High Court ruling. The Supreme Court ordered the IEBC, the Electoral Commission, to go and rectify those mistakes that were found there. Now, they're told that they should go and do an election in accordance with the Constitution and the laws of the country. What does the Jubilee, our competitor, do? They now, instead of complying with the law, they are changing the law so that it can now suit them. So it is them who are afraid of losing elections, not us.
Wow.
We are confident that we will win the elections if they're fairly held.
All right. We'll reach out to them and see what they have to say. Mr. Raila Odinga, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now, that is Raila Odinga, who is Kenya's presidential candidate. We thank you very much for joining us live via Skype from Nairobi. Not too far from Kenya, Rwandan prosecutor's office have charged a critical President Paul Kagame with inciting insurrection and forgery after she was barred from challenging him in August elections. Diana Shima Rwagara, a 35-year-old accountant, has repeatedly accused Kagame of stifling dissent and criticized his party, the Rwandan Patriotic Front's near total grip on power since it fought its way to power to end a genocide in 1994. Electoral authorities barred Rwagara from running in August, saying she had not submitted enough supporters' signatures and some of the names she sent in belonged to dead people. Now, Kagame won the August election with almost 99% of the vote. Now, is $4,000 a month enough to live on? Well, Tanzanian President John Magufuli thinks so. He revealed his salary during a speech on Tuesday that makes him one of the lowest paid African leaders as he pursues a much criticized policy of deep public spending cuts. Magufuli says his government has slashed the salaries of executives at state-owned companies to 15 million Tanzanian shillings or $6,700 a month, which is more than his own compensation. Since taking office in November 2015, Magufuli has cut government spending by imposing measures such as restrictions on foreign travel for government officials and the removal of ghost workers from the state payroll. Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook. So check us out and share our show with your friends. Also find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Now coming up, closing the digital gender gap on the continent. Stay with us.
I'm Jeff Selden, and I work the National Security Beat. National Security Beat is anything that affects the national security of the United States, from counterterrorism to surveillance to even relations with Russia. It's one of the most fascinating beats you can have. It's probably one of the more important beats that you can cover because it touches on so many areas of the world, so many areas of people's day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Selden, and my beat is national security.
Well, in most of the world, more men are connected to the internet than women. And in Africa, this gender gap is widening. That's according to ITU, the United Nations agency tracking the ICT sector. To understand why, VOA hit the streets of Nairobi, the Kenyan capital, and sat down with Nanjira Sambuli, who leads advocacy to promote digital equality in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America for the World Wide Web Foundation. Here's VOA's Mohammed Yusuf.
The digital gender divide is real and it's actually increasing. And even just from research alone that we've done at the Web Foundation, we've found that women are 30 to 50% less likely to be online. And even once online, they're less likely than men to use it for social, economic, political empowerment. So some of the causes that lead to this digital gender gap or divide range from even offline inequalities or previous inequalities actually replicating online. So anything from income, how much income men versus women earn will actually determine who gets to afford the devices, the cost of continually buying bundles or internet broadband connections at home, everything from how we're gendered and socialized in terms of who gets to speak up, who gets to feel that their voice counts. And so all these factors, we see them are actually lining up.
Experts say in developing countries like Kenya, women are less likely to have smartphones and data plans.
Men are more excited in smartwatches as compared to women. I've just told you because they're excited about the technology. More men are into technology as compared to women.
Sambuli says that kind of stereotyping starts early and contributes to the gender gap in digital literacy.
So there's been a lot of these notions that are sometimes unspoken but are very sort of like embedded in societies. Girls should do the softer stuff in school, the humanities, which are very important, don't get me wrong. But, you know, the hard stuff, the engineering, the technology, the math, if a girl sort of like is not really feeling it, it's cool, just go do the, you know, the humanities stuff. So those things have been inculcated over time.
Like in our school, accessing a computer lab, it was only accessible to girls for a few hours, but for boys they could go for more hours than girls.
GSMA Intelligence, which analyzes global mobile operator data, says 57% of Kenyan women who own mobile phones have never used them to access the internet, compared to 39% of men. In a recent study of 10 developing countries, including Kenya, the World Wide Web Foundation found that the top reason poor urban women gave for not going online is that they don't know how.
It matters because at the end of the day, if we're saying this is for everyone, we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that just because we spread out the internet, go you forth and spread masks or whatever, we can assume that everybody will be connected. It means we're missing out on ideas. We're missing out on people who would be creating, people who would be generating ideas and contributing to a new ecosystem that's becoming the pillar of many of our lives. So we have to factor that in. We have to monitor it. We have to be very deliberate with the investments that go in to make sure we understand who's not connected and why, and how can we actually take this to them in a way that actually empowers them and actually lifts them up from whatever divide is holding them in a different space.
Well, now for more on women in technology, let's get to Orlando, Florida, the venue of the Grace Hopper celebration, a 3-day conference designed to bring together women in computing to discuss research and career interest. For the details, VOA's Michelle Quinn joins us live from Florida. Now, Michelle, first, just let us kind of into what is the significance of this conference?
This is a really amazing conference because there's 18,000 participants, mostly women from all over the world. About 60-some countries have come here to Orlando, Florida, to talk about women in technology. And it's the biggest, largest gathering of women in technology in the world.
Tell us more about the attendees. How diverse? Where are they from?
They are from, I've met people from Africa, Asia, Europe, and of course the United States, South America. They are either people who are students or they're executives. It's the whole range here. Some are kind of technologists, people who work in technology, and some are, communication specialists. So it's kind of the whole range of jobs in technology are here.
And we know that today, Wednesday, is the first day of the event. Who are some of those slated to speak at that conference?
Well, we've already heard today from Melinda Gates. And Melinda Gates is, with her husband, Bill Gates, are responsible for the Gates Foundation. She also used to work at Microsoft. I think she was a product manager. And so she talked about how to bring more women into the tech industry. And she had some really interesting ideas. She said, we kind of get too focused on getting certain girls interested in math and then science and computer science. And if they don't get in the certain track, then they're not in. She had this idea of making the pipeline bigger and have many, many entry points.
Now, very quickly, we know that Voice of America will be having a big event on Thursday at Town Hall. Can you quickly just let us know what it will be aiming to achieve?
Sure. The Town Hall is going to talk about the digital gender divide. So around the world, that's about girls and women having access to technology, particularly in Africa, where I think 1 in 7 women have access to technology compared to 1 in 5 men, and in the most developing countries, or the least developing countries. So one panel is going to talk about why is this happening, what can be done to change this, how are individual women trying to make change. A second panel is going to look at women trying to get into the tech industry in the U.S., in Canada, all around the world where there's a tech industry, and kind of the stereotypes, the barriers women face.
Michelle, thank you very much. We hope to catch up with you again later in the week. That's
Sounds great.
Thanks. VOA's Michelle Quinn reporting live from Orlando in Florida. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Why has a new dating app created a firestorm in Indonesia? We'll be right back.
And we left on the basis that nothing has been agreed.
Voilà, ça devrait aussi bien bubonique que pulmonaire dans tous les districts de Madagascar, il a tout de suite riposte.
Welcome back to Africa 54. And here's what's trending. For polygamy seekers in Indonesia, any concerns they will not fit into the world of internet dating have been calmed thanks to a new Tinder-style app called Ayo Polygamy. The app, which is stirring controversy in the world's largest Muslim majority nation, allows men interested in polygamous marriages to seek out another wife, as well as chat to other men with similar intentions. Though widely frowned upon, polygamy is legal in Indonesia, where a man is allowed to be married to up to 4 women at a time. Women's rights activists have condemned the app, calling it upsetting and shocking. One next up, in the western U.S. at the University of Washington, a photograph is being taken. The blue box was produced by 3D printing, and the phone being slid into it is just a standard smartphone. Its camera is going to take a selfie of the subject's eyes. The photograph is analyzed using an app called a Bailey screen, being developed in the lab. It evaluates the color of the white of the eye surrounding the pupil for its level of bilirubin, the compound responsible for the yellowing of the eye in jaundice and an indicator of possibly serious medical conditions such as pancreatic cancer. The research team hopes the Bailey screen will be able to detect abnormal bilirubin levels before they are visible to the naked eye. Well, and finally, labels from Dior to Saint Laurent showed off their latest collections at the Paris Fashion Week, alongside another innovation meant to win the Industry Outfits Association with unhealthy, thin underage models. All say they were honoring a new charter by their parent companies, LVMH and Kering, setting age and size limits for the people parading their clothes. LVMH and Kering will no longer use models below the French size 34 for women and 44 for men, meaning in the United States, the infamous size 0, equivalent to a French 32, is out. It is still far from an industry-wide standard, but designers, models, and other insiders say the charter is just a first step. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa. That's between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Most people enjoy listening to music. But is this expression actually about songs and tunes?
Music to my ears.
Jonathan, I cannot believe we have to work over the weekend.
Did you not hear the news? The meeting for the project got canceled. No work this weekend after all.
Awesome! That is music